She sits alone in the sprawling living room of her Nashville home, a small figure drowning in opulence she never truly wanted. At 79, Dolly Parton's rhinestone-adorned hands move slowly across the strings of her guitar, fingers that have penned over 3,000 songs, now slightly stiffened by arthritis. The platinum wig catches the morning light, a shield she's worn for 6 decades, hiding the real woman beneath layers of carefully constructed persona. Her voice, still clear but carrying the weight of years, hums a melody from Coat of Many Colors, a song about poverty that ironically funded an empire. The irony isn't lost on her. A girl who once had nothing now has everything, except the simple life she sometimes yearns for and the children she never had. But to understand how we got here, to fully grasp the price of becoming an American icon, we need to return to the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains, where a little girl's dreams were as big as her family was poor. This is the untold story of Dolly Rebecca Parton, a woman who transformed herself from an impoverished child of the Appalachian Mountains into a global superstar, philanthropic force, and reluctant feminist icon, all while paying profound personal costs that few have truly seen. Beyond the wigs, beneath the makeup, and behind the famously self-deprecating jokes lies a woman who sacrificed a conventional life, endured decades of physical pain, weathered devastating losses, and built walls so high that even those closest to her rarely glimpse the real Dolly. If this story moves you, tap like so others might discover the woman behind the rhinestones. A woman whose greatest tragedy may be that the world only loves the carefully crafted character she created, not the complex human being she truly is. January 19th, 1946. A doctor trudges through the snow to a one-room cabin in Locust Ridge, Tennessee, where Avie Lee Parton is giving birth to her 4th child. There is no electricity, no running water. The payment for the doctor's services, a sack of cornmeal. This is how Dolly Rebecca Parton enters the world, in desperate poverty that would shape everything that followed. The 4th of eventually 12 children, Dolly was born into a family where hunger wasn't an abstract concept, but a daily reality. Her father, Robert Lee Parton, was a sharecropper and construction worker who never learned to read or write. The shame of illiteracy would later inspire Dolly to create her imagination library, which has distributed over 150 million books to children. But in those early years, shame was something that lived with the Partons like an unwelcome guest. "We were poor, but I was rich in things that money don't buy," Dolly would later say. But poverty extracts costs beyond the material. By age 7, Dolly was already developing the psychological mechanisms that would define her life: an unrelenting work ethic, a determination to escape, and most significantly, the creation of a larger-than-life persona that could shield her vulnerable core. Music became her first escape. At age 8, her grandfather, Jake Owens, gifted her a homemade wooden guitar. By 10, she was performing on local television. By 13, she recorded her first single, Puppy Love, and appeared on the Grand Ole Opry, where Johnny Cash encouraged her to follow her instincts rather than industry expectations, advice she would cling to throughout her career. But beneath the precocious talent-festered wounds that would never fully heal, in the cramped cabin, privacy was non-existent. Dolly and her siblings slept 3 and 4 to a bed, bodies pressed against each other for warmth on winter nights when the mountain cold seeped through the cracks in the walls. This early loss of physical boundaries would later manifest in Dolly's paradoxical relationship with her public image, hypersexualized yet strangely untouchable. The summer of 1955 brought another formative trauma. At 9 years old, Dolly contracted a severe case of rheumatic fever. For months, she burned with fever, her joints swelling painfully as the infection attacked her heart. Doctors warned her parents she might not survive. Though she eventually recovered, the illness left her with a weakened heart and recurring health issues that she would battle privately for decades. In the hollows of East Tennessee, Pentecostal Christianity ruled with fire and brimstone. Dolly's grandfather was a Pentecostal preacher, and the church's influence ran deep. Each Sunday, she witnessed speaking in tongues, faith healing, and the handling of venomous snakes. Dramatic displays of faith that would influence her understanding of performance. But the church also brought shame. When Dolly began experimenting with makeup at age 10, crushing pokeberries for lipstick and using a burnt matchstick for eyeliner, her grandfather publicly denounced her as sinful. The congregation stared as he scrubbed her face raw. That night, alone on the porch of the cabin, she made two promises to herself. She would leave this place, and she would never again appear without her face on. Both promises would shape her destiny in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. The summer after high school graduation in 1964, Dolly packed her possessions in a cardboard suitcase and boarded a bus to Nashville. She was 18, beautiful, and brimming with songs she'd been writing since childhood. What she lacked in connections, she made up for in determination. "The first day I got to Nashville," she later recalled, "I cleaned my face with snow from someone's yard because I didn't have running water. I was staying with my Uncle Bill, but I was too proud to ask for help." Those early Nashville years were a gauntlet of indignities. Music executives dismissed her songs while openly leering at her body. She took jobs cleaning hotel rooms and working at a laundromat to survive. By day, she knocked on doors along Music Row. By night, she wrote songs. In a basement apartment where the bathtub doubled as a bed when relatives visited. Her first significant break came not as a performer, but as a songwriter. In 1967, "Put It Off Until Tomorrow," recorded by Bill Phillips with Dolly on uncredited backup vocals, reached number 6 on the country charts. The same year, she married Carl Dean, a quiet asphalt contractor who saw beyond the makeup and ambition to the mountain girl underneath. Their union would become one of Nashville's most enduring yet mysterious marriages. He would attend only one of her performances in 50-plus years together. "I never wanted him in this business," Dolly would later explain. "It's a choice I made to protect something real in a world where everything else is for sale." The contradiction was established early. Dolly created a public persona that demanded attention while fiercely guarding her private life. This compartmentalization served her professionally, but extracted emotional costs that would compound over decades. In 1967, Dolly's career took a pivotal turn when Porter Wagoner invited her to join his television show as a regular performer. The weekly exposure to millions of viewers catapulted her visibility, but the partnership quickly evolved into something more complicated. Wagoner, recognizing Dolly's star potential, became controlling, dictating her song choices, appearance, and business decisions. "He was like a father, brother, and sometimes a jealous husband," she once said, choosing her words carefully. For 7 years, she remained in his shadow, smiling through humiliations both public and private. Wagoner would criticize her weight and appearance on set, then demand she stay after rehearsals while he explained how she could improve. Yet during this confinement, Dolly wrote some of her most enduring work. In 1971, "Coat of Many Colors" reached number 4 on the country charts, a deceptively simple narrative about her mother stitching a coat from donated rags that revealed Dolly's gift for transforming personal pain into universal emotional truths. But then, in 1973, came the breaking point. Convinced her potential was being smothered, Dolly decided to leave the Wagoner show. The confrontation turned ugly, with Porter reportedly threatening both legal action and to destroy her career. In response, Dolly went home and wrote, "I Will Always Love You" as a peace offering, a song that would later become one of the best-selling singles of all time when recorded by Whitney Houston. Wagoner accepted the song, but not the sentiment. The split cost Dolly half her publishing rights and created an industry reputation as difficult that she would spend years counteracting with her trademark self-deprecating humor. The years between 1974 and 1980 marked Dolly's first major ascent to crossover stardom. She scored her first solo #1 with Joshua, followed by a string of hits including Jolene and Love Is Like a Butterfly. By 1976, she had her own syndicated television show and had broken free of country music's confining boundaries. The 1977 album Here You Come Again went platinum, earning Dolly her first Grammy Award. But success at this level demanded physical sacrifices. Dolly maintained a punishing schedule of 150-plus shows annually, recording sessions, television appearances, and business meetings. The rhinestone costumes she became famous for often weighed up to 40 pounds, putting immense strain on her 5-foot frame. By 1979, she was experiencing such severe back and abdominal pain that she collapsed backstage in Indianapolis. The subsequent diagnosis was devastating: severe endometriosis requiring a partial hysterectomy at age 36. The procedure meant Dolly and Carl would never have the children they had planned to have once her career stabilized. "God has a plan," she told an interviewer years later, her trademark smile firmly in place. "Mine wasn't to have children of my own, I guess, but to mother everyone else's." The pain behind those carefully chosen words remains one of country music's most closely guarded secrets. But then came the 1980s, and with them, Dolly's transformation into a mainstream entertainment juggernaut. The film 9 to 5 in 1980 showcased her natural screen presence and earned her an Academy Award nomination for its title song. The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas followed in 1982, along with a controversial Playboy cover that epitomized Dolly's canny navigation of her sexualized image, managing to appear on the magazine's cover while never actually posing nude. Behind the scenes, however, the physical toll mounted. The years of wearing towering wigs and 4-inch heels had created chronic neck and back problems. Multiple cosmetic procedures, which Dolly openly acknowledges with her famous quip, "It costs a lot of money to look this cheap," each required painful recovery periods hidden from public view. The late 1980s brought even greater challenges. Dolly's weight fluctuated dramatically as she battled health issues she kept private. In 1988, she was diagnosed with kidney stones so severe they required multiple surgeries. During recovery, she developed an addiction to prescription painkillers that would take years to overcome, a struggle she has only obliquely referenced in interviews. "There were times I thought I wouldn't make it through the night," she told Rolling Stone in a rare moment of candor. "But morning always came, and I'd put on my face and my clothes and go be Dolly for another day." January 1984. Dolly sits in a Nashville doctor's office, struggling to breathe. For months, she's been battling recurring respiratory infections, exhaustion, and depression so severe she's contemplated ending her life. The diagnosis is unexpected but explains everything: internal bleeding caused by undiagnosed endometriosis that had spread before her partial hysterectomy. Emergency surgery is scheduled for the following morning. In the hospital room, preparing for an operation that carries significant risks, Dolly faces a moment of reckoning. Her weight has dropped to 98 pounds. Her marriage is strained by years of separation and career demands. Porter Wagoner has filed a $3 million lawsuit against her, and the girl who escaped poverty to conquer Nashville now finds herself wondering if any of it was worth the price. "I looked out the hospital window at the lights of Nashville," she later wrote in her journal, "and realized I'd created a life that was running without me in it. I'd become a product, not a person." The surgery was successful, but recovery required canceling an entire year of performances, the first significant career interruption since she began performing at age 10. For the woman who had built an empire on superhuman productivity, enforced stillness became its own kind of trauma. It was during this period of physical recovery and spiritual crisis that Dolly wrote the songs for what many critics consider her finest album, "The Grass is Blue." The years following Dolly's health crisis marked a professional descent that tested her resilience like nothing before. Country radio, embracing the new traditional sound of Randy Travis and George Strait, increasingly viewed Dolly as a relic of a bygone era. By 1986, she couldn't get her singles played on the same stations that had once made her a star. Album sales plummeted. Rainbow, released in 1987, became her worst-performing record since the 1960s. Concert attendance dwindled. The Dolly Parton show that once sold out arenas now struggled to fill theaters. Industry executives who had once courted her now wouldn't return her calls. "It's a special kind of heartbreak," she confided to her sister Rachel, "to be forgotten while you're still here." The financial implications were severe. Dolly had invested heavily in various business ventures, including her dream project, a theme park in the Tennessee mountains that would bring economic opportunity to the impoverished region where she grew up. With diminishing income from music, she was forced to take out loans against future earnings to keep Dollywood afloat during its difficult early years. By 1990, the pressure had become unbearable. The chronic pain from her various health conditions required stronger medication. The wigs she wore daily caused painful traction alopecia. The tight costumes aggravated her gastrointestinal issues. Most nights after performances, she would return to her hotel room alone, remove the layers of her public persona, and weep from physical and emotional exhaustion. The lowest point came in 1992, when Dolly developed such severe depression that she contemplated suicide. Alone in her bedroom at her Nashville home, she went so far as to pick up a gun that belonged to Carl. "I looked at that gun for a long time," she later confided to her longtime friend Jane Fonda. "What stopped me was my dog Popeye coming in and licking my face. It sounds silly, maybe, but I took it as a sign that I was still needed here." This dark night of the soul coincided with her 25th wedding anniversary, a marriage that had weathered career highs and lows, long separations, and intense public scrutiny. Carl, noticing her spiral, insisted she step back from performing and focus on healing. For 6 months, Dolly virtually disappeared from public view. No concerts, no television appearances, no recordings. During this period of forced rest, she returned to the simple pleasures of her childhood: gardening, cooking, and, most importantly, writing songs with no commercial agenda. She reconnected with the mountain music of her youth, playing the dulcimer and autoharp on her porch as the sun set over Nashville. Healing came slowly. Dolly worked with doctors to reduce her dependence on pain medication. She underwent therapy to address the childhood traumas she had buried beneath decades of relentless work. She reconnected with her siblings, particularly her sister Rachel, who moved in temporarily to provide companionship during the darkest days. The industry that had once embraced her continued its indifference. Record executives suggested she consider retirement. Former collaborators distanced themselves, fearing association with a fading star might tarnish their own prospects. Publications that had once clamored for interviews now relegated her to "Where Are They Now" features. Yet, in this professional wasteland, seeds of reinvention were taking root. Removed from the pressure of commercial expectations, Dolly returned to the purity of her Appalachian roots. In 1994, she began recording acoustic versions of traditional mountain songs, funding the sessions herself when no label showed interest. The resulting album, Heart Songs, released on a small independent label, sold modestly but earned critical acclaim. More importantly, it reconnected Dolly with what had driven her to music in the first place, the joy of creating something authentic. "I'd been so busy being a star," she reflected. "I forgot about being an artist. Getting back to that saved me." As Dolly approached her 60s, something remarkable happened. The world caught up to her. The industry that had once dismissed her as a novelty act began recognizing her as a pioneer. Younger artists, from Shania Twain to Taylor Swift, cited her as a primary influence. Music critics reassessed her catalog and found not just commercial country hits, but a body of work that chronicled the American experience with particular emphasis on women's struggles. The 2000s brought an unexpected renaissance. Her 2002 album, Halos and Horns, featuring a haunting bluegrass cover of Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, earned her first Grammy nomination in 17 years. In 2005, she received Kennedy Center honors. By 2009, she had become the rare artist to receive Grammy nominations in 6 different decades. But the most profound transformation wasn't professional but philosophical. The woman, who had spent decades maintaining a carefully constructed image, began slowly allowing glimpses of her authentic self. At 75, during a rare extended interview with Oprah Winfrey, Dolly spoke candidly about the cost of her choices. "Not having children is my biggest regret," she admitted. "There are nights I wake up at 3 a.m. and wonder who would be caring for me now if I had a daughter or son. Carl and we're getting older. We don't have kids to look after us." This late-life vulnerability extended to her appearance as well. While still maintaining her signature look for public appearances, she began occasionally referencing the physical toll of decades of cosmetic procedures. "There's a price for this face and body," she told Vanity Fair at 77. "I've had so much plastic surgery that if I died, they'd have to melt me down before they could bury me." The joke landed as intended, but those close to her recognized the truth beneath. Decades of surgeries had left her with nerve damage, chronic pain, and limited facial mobility. Philanthropy became her most meaningful legacy. In 1995, she launched the Imagination Library, inspired by her father's illiteracy. What began as a local effort to provide books to children in Sevier County, Tennessee has expanded to 5 countries, distributing more than 150 million books. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Dolly donated $1 million toward vaccine research at Vanderbilt University, funding that helped develop the Moderna vaccine. Now, at 79, Dolly faces the inevitable questions about mortality and legacy. Her health remains a closely guarded concern. The rheumatic fever of her childhood left lasting damage to her heart valves, requiring ongoing monitoring. The numerous surgeries have created complications that necessitate regular medical intervention. Yet she continues to work, albeit at a reduced pace, releasing music and overseeing her business empire. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of Dolly's late years is the dichotomy between her global adoration and her essential solitude. Despite being one of the most recognized women in the world, her circle of true intimates remains strikingly small. Carl, now in his 80s, still shuns the spotlight. Her most trusted confidants are her siblings, particularly her sister Rachel and brother Randy, with whom she shares the unique burden of their extraordinary journey from poverty to prominence. In rare, unguarded moments, Dolly has reflected on the paradox of her existence, that becoming Dolly Parton required sacrificing aspects of Dolly Rebecca Parton, the person. The wigs, makeup, and rhinestones that began as an escape from poverty became a cage of expectations. The persona that liberated her from Locust Ridge ultimately constrained her in ways she couldn't have anticipated. "Would I do it all again?" she mused during a 2023 interview. "Yes, but maybe with more breaks to live a little. There are whole decades I was so busy being Dolly Parton that I missed being alive." What remains is an artist of rare authenticity despite, or perhaps because of, her artificial appearance. A woman who transformed herself physically, yet remained emotionally true to her origins. A cultural icon who understood that immortality comes at the cost of a normal human existence. "I created this character, and I'm stuck with her," she told The Guardian in one of her most revealing interviews. "But we've made our peace with each other. She's been good to me, and I try to be good to her." Today, as twilight settles over her Nashville estate, Dolly still rises at 3 a.m., a habit from childhood when pre-dawn hours offered the only solitude in a crowded cabin. She applies her makeup meticulously, dons one of her hundreds of wigs, and spends hours answering fan mail before most people have had their first cup of coffee. The discipline that carried her from poverty to legendary status remains undiminished by time or achievement. The true tragedy of Dolly Parton may not be the hardships she overcame or the physical pain she endures, but something more existential, that a woman who has given so much joy to millions has experienced so many of her own pivotal life moments through the filter of performance rather than presence. That in becoming immortal, she sacrificed aspects of being simply human. If this journey moved you, please share it so others might see beyond the rhinestones to the resilient spirit beneath. Which moment in Dolly's life resonates most deeply with you? And what does that reveal about your own relationship with sacrifice and authenticity? In the end, perhaps Dolly's greatest gift isn't her music or her philanthropy, but the example of a life that transformed pain into purpose without ever becoming bitter. As she once said, "The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you gotta put up with the rain."